Hello, hello, hello. Hey everyone. Welcome to another episode of BIM After Dark Live. My name is Jeff, also known as the Revit Kid. This is episode 90 of BIM After Dark Live, believe it or not. And this is the final episode for the 2022 season. So I hope you guys enjoyed the last, I think it was like 20-something episodes we did this year. Hope you enjoyed them. We're going to be talking about stairs. I have a returning guest that you all know and love named Paul Aubin. I'll introduce him very soon. He was brave enough to take on stairs in Revit. So we're going to see where this conversation goes. I'm super excited for it. This is a weekly live stream for those of you here for the first time. A weekly live stream where we talk about Revit, BIM, and any adjacent software and technologies around the AEC community. If you're here live tonight, I will be checking out the chat and trying to feed questions into the conversation as needed. So feel free to chat away. I see some returning visitors and some new visitors, so thank you guys for joining. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel here on YouTube. I've got this weekly live stream every Thursday night, but also lots of other great content that you guys should definitely check out. And before I do introduce our guest, I did want to mention again, this episode is brought to you by the BIM After Dark community. For those of you not familiar with the BIM After Dark community, it is a private learning space for yourselves, hosted by yours truly. Within that community, as you become a member, you will get access to a lot of great features, which I'm going to show you real quickly, which is, as you can see, this is kind of the social media feed where people get to ask questions and news is posted along the way. Let me just lower the music a little so you can see. So you can see here, Adrian was asking about DWF exports. We have a live stream tomorrow for members only, where we're talking about keynoting, which is going to be awesome. We've got a whole bunch of content going. You can see here we're talking about cornices and all that good stuff. So not only is there this area where you can ask questions and have like-minded conversations within our own little private bubble, but we also have course content. So you can see here, this is a 4 courses, full Revit courses that I created here with sample files. One that has to do with presentation techniques, one that has to do with documentation, the other that has to do with making Revit families, and then finally DIY Dynamo, so getting started in Dynamo. And what's really neat about these courses is not only do you have course videos with sample files throughout, every video and every lesson has an area where you can ask questions and comment, as well as an activity feed within each course, so you can talk to myself and other users and members that are actually going through the courses. And last but not least, we do have live office hours, and so you can see we've had 56 office hours, and that's a bi-weekly Zoom call with myself and other members to talk about whatever it is that is on your mind that you need to help working through when it comes to Revit and related software. And sometimes we have guests. You could see back in September, our guest tonight on this live stream was actually a guest in our office hour, and so Paul joined us, and we talked about a bunch of stuff, hidden lines and links, sharing materials, etc., etc., etc. So a bunch of really cool stuff. So if you guys are interested, I am doing a end of the year sale from now until next week, 30% off for any member, lifetime membership fee. So be sure to check it out at community.bimafterdark.com, and you can come hang out with us here in the community and take your Revit to the next level. So definitely check that out. Again, that's community.bimafterdark.com. And I have Tom and a few people actually who are members here on the live stream. So what's going on, guys? So without further ado, I didn't want to take a ton of time in the beginning because we have a lot of content to jump into. And I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions. So I'll finally introduce, waiting in the green room is the one and only Paul Aubin. What's up, man?
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well.
I forgot that we did that thing.
I know, it feels like a long time ago, huh?
Yeah, it was a while.
That was pretty fun though. Yeah, there was probably like 12 or 13 members on with that, and we just did a Q&A, and I think they thoroughly enjoyed having some ear time with Paul and Jeff.
That was a good time. We went through a lot of content, and it flew by.
Yeah, it did for sure. And it's September. I mean, it doesn't feel like it was September. Well, welcome back to the show, Paul.
Thank you.
I appreciate you taking time away from your busy schedule to come on and talk about a challenging topic. But I'm grateful for you being brave to jump on and do this. Paul and I were joking before we jumped on. If you looked at my content over the years, I don't think I've touched stairs very often at all, and there's a reason for that, because it's a scary topic to hit on. So we're going to do our best tonight to walk through this and show you guys some make you guys comfortable with the stair tool, I think, right?
Yeah, well, so there's a bunch of places we could jump into this, and what I thought I would do is start with a kind of typical egress stair here, because I'm sure this is what a lot of folks on the stream here tonight need to do. So this will give us a chance to talk about a lot of the nuts and bolts and the do's and don'ts and the what to expect and not to expect. And then, I've got a few other examples that we can call up if time allows that get into maybe a few more specialized things. But I thought this was probably the bread and butter area. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what's already here, and then I'll show you how some of this stuff was built. The history of this is the type that I'm using here, the stair type and the railing type, were actually created for a client a couple of years back for their library. So I was working with a client building a lot of family libraries, and we were trying to come up with reusable content that leveraged what was good about the stairs and avoided what wasn't so good about the stairs. And so my first tip when talking about stairs is to just set the right expectations. And it sounds like almost like a cop-out, but honestly, you'd be surprised at how much you can save your blood pressure if you just have the right expectations about what you're going to get out of this stair tool. Right now, we're looking at a sheet here that has, I don't remember what scale I set this at. It might be quarter. Yeah. Okay. So this is 1/4 inch. Okay. And I'm going to just zoom in a little bit here. Actually, let me do ZS. See if that works here. Because I already am in a sheet, right? Let's do it this way. Let me double click in the viewport. There we go. I was going to say, why is that not working? Okay. So that's, I know we're on the live stream, but on my screen anyway, that's to scale at 1/4 inch. And it should be telling you roughly what it would look like if we were looking at a PDF right now. What would be bold, what wouldn't be bold, what geometry you're going to see, what you're not going to see. Apologies for the hatch pattern on the concrete wall in the background there. I forgot to hide that. But actually that helps the stair stand out a little bit, so we'll just leave it. But I think for this level of detail, for your overall floor plans, your overall sections, 1/4 inch, maybe even 1/2 inch scale, what you get out of this native stair tool with just a few clicks of the mouse, I think is fine. And I think in most cases is more than fine for construction document purposes, right? Here's the floor plans that go along with that. These are also at 1/4 inch scale, right? And I'll just kind of walk through them. That's the lowest level, right? And then, going up to your first floor, your second floor, and it just sort of works its way up the building here, right? And then what you do in larger scales is you just draw a detail. Now, I know I hate to crush everybody and have everybody be all disappointed, but if you think you're going to click 4 times with the mouse, right? Because that's what it takes, right? 1, 2 for run 1, 2, 3, or 3, 4 for run 2. And if you think you're going to click the mouse 4 times and get shop drawings, then you got the wrong expectation for stair. So honestly, that's the lesson, right? Like in my experience, most people have this unreasonable expectation about what they're going to get from stairs for 4 clicks of the mouse, and they don't have that same expectation for other tools in Revit. Like I don't know why we think we're not going to be able to, that we're going to draw our walls or our doors or our roofs or really just about anything else, and have it be perfect and give us 1.5 inch and 3 inch to a foot details without a little bit of effort expended, and yet we somehow expect that out of stairs, right? Now, this isn't to absolve Autodesk here or to absolve Revit and to say stairs are perfect and there's nothing wrong with them. I'm not saying that. And railings especially. Railings definitely, could use some love. Both of these tools could use some love. But having said that, it's one of those things where is it perfect? Of course not. But if you have that right expectation going in, I believe you can get some pretty good results. And you won't have to make too many drastic compromises. This is still a hybrid detail. Right. I did not just throw the whole thing away and draw it all as drafting. Right. If I click in here, this is the railing, right? This is that's a that's a landing. So that's actually a floor slab. But somewhere back here is the stair. Where is it? There, right? These are the stairs, right? There's the stair. This one I covered up. Okay, so I did cheat here, right? Because this one, if you zoom in nice and close, because I wanted the nosings to look correct, that is just a drafty, repeating detail on top of that. And this, if I just do hide element there, right? You can barely see it, but it does peek through a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. That pointed corner on the nosing that you get from the stair tool. Now, could I have done a custom profile? Yes. But you know what? I just didn't think it was worth it, right? Mm-hmm. So that's one of those things where, you could make a custom profile for this nosing shape and, and then you're going to really fight with it when they join together, because you'll get one part of it to look correct, maybe the nosing, but then the back part of the, the back part of the riser won't look correct, or vice versa. So I just decided, you know what? It's one detail. This is a typical detail, right? It's one detail with an arrayed, I said a repeating detail, but it's actually an array, sorry, mm-hmm. but with an arrayed component. And, to me, production-wise, that was acceptable, right? Mm-hmm. Now, you might make a different calculus in your own work, but I'm just I wanted to show you the final result here so you can see what's live and what's, I guess another way we could do this is to do the, over here for the model display, we could set it to halftone so you can see, mm-hmm. A pretty good amount of this is the live model. But do you see here how some of the lines are dark? Mm-hmm. That's the line work tool, because yes. when you have those rounded edges in 3D, they never render well in an elevation, right? But I was pleasantly surprised that I was able to just touch those edges with the line work tool and clean them up, mm-hmm. and that worked just great. I didn't have to trace over them with separate lines, mm-hmm. right? So the line work tool is a little nicer just because it's still the live geometry. You're just telling it to render differently than, here, right here where I'm getting this gap because, railings don't do join geometry, right? Right. So that looks like hell. That, unfortunately, you would just have to put some lines there, right? Mm-hmm. If you wanted to, to take care of that. Some of that I just decided, it's not bothering me enough to do that. But again, your results may vary. You might decide to do something a little bit different there. So, but I just wanted to show you kind of like a finished result. Okay, this is all pushing the live stair as far as I think is practical, mm-hmm. not possible. It's possible to push it further. Right. What I'm calling practical, right? I'm trying to keep in mind that I don't want to spend my life building this stair. I don't want it to take longer for me to build the stair in Revit than it would take to build it in real life, mm-hmm. right? So I'm going to try and find a practical compromise between what the stairs do well, what they don't do well, right. And and I think for figuring out how much room the stair takes, for figuring out the tread and riser ratios, for figuring out the special cases. Like here, you can see in this one, there was two sort of first floors because at the street level there's a sloping condition. So this stair is in the middle of the building, so it's about halfway up that difference in elevation. So you're actually entering the stair at one height over here, but to get out the exit door at the back of the building, you're at a different height. And so this stair is unique. This one is unique. This is just a slab. I just built instead of using a landing or trying to do that with the landing tool, I just built it as a floor slab. Mm-hmm. And then this up here is a stair tower, because once you get above that level, the rest of it is pretty typical. And the floor to floor heights are largely the same. But even if they're not the same, that's the advantage of a stair tower, because it can regulate those different floor to floor heights. Right. So again, I was trying to leverage the tool for what it does well. Those are the things that it does well: the stair tower, the navigating the different level heights. Mm-hmm. And what it doesn't do so well, it's got some problems in the details, and it doesn't do the landings over on this side, which is really annoying, right? So all of these had to be floor slabs, right? Yes. I've tried to do a stair where you fake it out to get a landing in there, and I just don't like the results. So personally, I think just put a floor slab there. Now, I was doing a metal plate floor slab in this project, but you could just as easily have a concrete floor slab there. And then, you're just going to have to at an extreme, you might have to do something custom at that top riser. I've seen some details where the top riser is only like 2 inches deep, as opposed to a full 10 or 12 inches, right? In that case, the only way you're going to get the live stair to do that is to actually convert that run to a sketch, which is kind of a drag. Like, I really try and avoid converting the runs to a sketch if you can avoid it, for sure. If you can avoid it. I've got an example that I'm going to show you a little bit later, though, where I do convert it to a sketch because you have to, right? So if you need to, you need to, but it's not going to be as parametric when you do that. So so I try and avoid that. But and I actually learned that by accident, because I noticed that a client sent me a stair and he said, I can't figure out what's going on here. How did he do this and blah, blah, blah. And then I looked at it. I was like, oh, they converted this to a sketch. And then I realized why. It's because it was going into they had a concrete slab, and then they just wanted a little 2-inch nosing for that first top riser, and then the regular risers from there. And to get that little 2-inch nosing at the top, if you convert it to a sketch, you could just move that that one riser line and it's done. So I was like, oh, that's pretty clever, except that it's now a sketch-based stair, which I didn't love, but it got the job done. So let me take a breath there for a minute and see if there's anything in particular you want me to dive into, or any questions that you want.
No, definitely. I think so. I think we definitely. I think there are a couple questions, but I think as you're going through building this stair and showing some aspects of how you built it, I think you'll answer a lot of those. So we don't have to dive into those. I think I just wanted to reiterate, because I think it's an interesting point that you mentioned there of setting expectations for the stair tool, right, and setting expectations for what you can and can't do with it effectively, right, or practically or efficiently, I don't know, whatever word you want to use there. I think that's key, because I do think that there are a lot of crazy stuff you could do with the stair tool, but is it practical or efficient? I guess it depends.
Absolutely.
But the other thing that you didn't mention that I think you're showing is that I think is important, is also setting expectations for what stair details need to look like. And comparing that with what you can do. And so I'm glad that you mentioned that's a hybrid detail, because I think that's key too, is so many people will immediately jump to a drafted view that it's probably like a CAD import from 30 years ago that they've been using on every drawing forever. But when I look at like a detail you just showed, what I think about is what information actually needs to be on a detail and what doesn't. And so I think when you're thinking about that too, that's important, because in most cases, especially in these commercial building like this, there's going to be fabrication drawings. There's going to be a fabricator who does shop drawings. We don't need our wall sections and details to be fabrication drawings. We need the information that's important for them to make those fabrication drawings, but we don't need all of it. And so I think that's interesting, because when you think about that, then maybe you can get away with more of a hybrid section and not have to immediately dive to drafting. So I just want everyone to take that point away, because I think it's important. You're by maintaining some model in the view, you're still coordinating with the model, and that's the key. So if levels change, if things change, you're seeing it happen, and you have to modify your drafting, and that's the key part, right?
And I have a comment on that in a minute, but I think the one caveat to everything I completely agree, everything you just said, we're of the same mind there. The one caveat is just be clear going in what your role is, right? Like, to me, I'm approaching this as the role of the traditional architectural documentation set, where my job is to convey design intent, right? And then guide the process as we move through shop drawings and so forth.
Right.
But if your role is a little different than that, if your BIM deliverable is such that it does go into fabrication or whatever, then that changes your calculus. So to me, BIM is always this. There's always, what am I putting in? What am I getting out? And I think sometimes people just, they throw around a lot of words and they talk about, true BIM, whatever that is, right? And but you can't really say what a true BIM is, because it completely depends on what your role is in the process, what you are contracted to do, what you're expected to do, and then you use the tools to their best efficiency to get you there, right? So you have to be very clear on what your goal is first. Don't just jump in and expect, and that's one of the reasons why, again, not trying to absolve anybody here, but that's one of the reasons why, whatever it gets done with the stair, it will never meet everybody's needs, because everybody wants to do something a little different with it, right?
Right.
So
yeah, I agree.
The other thing I wanted to point out that dovetails into what you said.
Sure.
This was a little traditional the way I did this one, and I'm going to admit something here. I did the detailing too late. Okay, so I would recommend you do it earlier than I did, like almost right away, because I discovered here that when I started working on this detail, that I've got my railings a little bit wrong, because this would come down and weld to the outside of this plate most likely, and I have it centered on the middle of the stringer, and that's kind of a problem, right? So,
Right.
But at this stage of where this project is, to go back and fix the model now, like I toyed with fudging the detail. I decided to leave it for now because there's another pass and there's another opportunity but it's an issue. And what it left me with was a great lesson to kind of share with the group is don't wait too long to do your detail, right? If you're doing a hybrid detail, especially, you can start laying those out early.
Yeah. The second there's an element there, you could at least put a view, put a section cut, put a call out, and have it there, right? Yeah.
And it starts to convey that information. It makes you realize, oh crap, I got to go back and address that. Something is not right there. There's so many things for us to keep track of in a typical project that you just can't keep track of it all. So that's why make as many views as you can and have them ready to go so that you start to discover these things sooner rather than later. So anyway, I decided before somebody in the chat says, hey, his railings aren't right.
How are you going to weld that thing?
Yeah, I'm gonna just come clean and say, yeah, I know, and I discovered it too late, and it needs to be fixed, but maybe later, right?
Awesome.
So anyway, let me show you a little bit about this stair type then. So I've actually got a view here where I just isolated just the stair, right? And I didn't do anything fancy with this. I just literally selected the geometry and then hit everything else, right? So this view is purely for the purpose of showing you just the stair itself without any of the surrounding architecture. And I'm going to start with the one down at the bottom because it's not part of a stair tower, so it's easy for me to just grab it. And this is called metal plate stringer, right? Pretty common egress type stair. And I tried to keep it as simple as possible in the type. I don't want to get super carried away with this stuff, right? So if you compare this to, I'm sure a lot of your viewers are familiar with the settings in a typical, like the
7x11 or whatever.
Yeah, the typical 7x11 that's here. I didn't change anything there, right? So it's really here in the run type where there's some changes. And then, I try and change the names. So prefix underscore is helping me identify in a long list of stairs. This one, it kind of bubbles to the top. So that's the only reason I did that. But if we edit this, this 1/4-inch tread, 1-inch nosing riser one, right? There's not really anything different here. I think the only thing that's different from the out of the box is I changed it to a slanted riser because the out of the box one, it's this is unchecked, and then there's a profile, and I just took the profile off. Because you're going to get that sharp corner. Okay. They don't have a fillet option here. It'd be nice if they did, right? Like they have that in railings.
Right.
They don't have it in the stairs, right? So if we could just automatically make it fillet. Now, having said that, like I said, I chose not to get down the rabbit hole of profiles. But you can put a profile for risers, for nosings, and for treads. So if you want to try and get closer to that steel detail that I have in the detail where it actually wraps around and the other one comes up underneath it, you could try that with profiles. Okay. I went, when they first introduced this functionality years ago, I did this big, long, exhaustive study on that. And I found it was frustrating getting the insertion points correct. Okay. Now it may have improved since then. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've jumped down that rabbit hole again. And I backed myself up and I said, really, what am I saving by doing that? I can just draw the detail and it will be, but again, like I said, you might make a different calculus. So for those that want to explore, that's what you might want to look into is the tread profile, the nosing profile, the riser profile. Those might get you closer to the detail. But otherwise, all I did here was rely strictly on the materials. It's 1/4-inch in both directions, and it comes at that sharp point, which is perfect for 1/8 inch, 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, maybe even 1 inch to a foot. You probably wouldn't start to notice. It's only when you start getting into the large scale details that you would notice. And that's when you just add the detail component, in my opinion. So that's all that's going on for the run type. For the supports, it's pretty straightforward because it's just a plate stringer, which means that the material again is just 1/4-inch material. I mean, there's really nothing to it, right? I don't really remember where this number came from, so I don't know if that was auto-calculated or if I did that, but I really don't remember. So I'm just going to leave it alone for now. And of course, I added some materials. But that's it. That's the stair type. I mean, the stair type is super simple. What really is where a lot of the work was in this particular content is the railing. Okay. Because to get railings, and it's really the extensions on the railing. Let me see if I can find a good example here. Right here, right? Do you see how it... I know everybody was hoping I'd have some magic way to make it go around the corner. Sorry, I don't. Okay? This is a separate railing, right? I just deleted that. I'm going to undo, right? So I literally just drew a separate railing. Now, I personally, anybody who's heard me talk before knows I hate seams.
Yep.
So this seam does bother me. Yes, it really does. But compared to the agony that I would have to go through to try and do that as one continuous railing, I got over it. Okay. The other thing you might notice about this railing is I've got very few posts because the minute you introduce posts into here, it starts becoming kind of, painful. So I decided I could live without the posts for my 1/8 and 1/4 and even 1/2 inch scale views. And in views that really needed to see the posts, they were probably zoomed in closer, which means I'm only adding 1 or 2 manually. You're not adding posts down the entire railing, right? Now, some might say, well, what about Enscape? Well, I don't know. If you're doing Enscape at your fire stairs, then yeah, maybe then you need to go introduce your posts, right? And I do have a couple, right? You see, there are some here, okay? But I'm not getting them in these areas here because it's just to try and get the railing to do it automatically was just becoming too painful. They do have corner posts, but it kind of messes up other things. And so that was the decision I made, okay, is that given what I was able to do without posts versus what I was able to do with posts, I decided to really dial back the posts. And so I've only got the most basic ones. I've got one right there, right there, and right there. And I decided not to do posts around where it turns the corner. Okay. Again, your results may vary.
Right.
But the to get vertical members like the IBC code calls for along your extension, that's not really a great example. Where's a better example? Probably at the top. Those have to be supports. Where is a good example? Well, okay. There is a little bit right here. You are seeing it right there, right? If those were balusters, they would stop here at this one.
Right.
Okay. To get it to go to this one, this is actually a support. Okay. And you see the little push pin here, right? That's a separate element. Supports only work on top rails and handrails. Okay. So if I, kind of look at this railing type, there is a top rail that I called IBC circular. Again, the underscore. That's my naming, right? That's my topmost rail up here at the very top. Then I'm using 2 handrails, one for the actual handrail that you grab onto, that's a proper handrail, the other one for the bottom rail, down at the, this guy down here. This is actually a handrail. So this is a handrail, and this is a handrail. Sorry, I don't have one of those highlighters to Zoom has that, right?
I think so, but that's okay. I could do it for you too if you want.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a handrail, and this is a handrail. And this is a top rail. Okay. So that one is T for top, and this is handrail, right?
Yep.
Now I got to figure out how to erase all of that, right?
I can't tell you how. It's somewhere on the Zoom controls.
They're all drawings, and they go back to the mouse. Yeah. All right. Let me close that. Okay. So, my good friend Nahama from Arc Intelligence, she has this little tool that she told me what it was, and I downloaded, installed it, and she's so good at the keyboard shortcuts for being able to point to things very easily. I think it's called Zoom It. I'm just terrible at it. I can't remember the right keyboard shortcuts.
Yeah.
By the time I find them, I make a mess of things, but I'm always jealous of her when she's presenting because she's so good at pointing out things, and I do that terribly. But anyway, I digress. So here, this one is set to left, this one's set to right. Okay, and that's how you can get this to work, because you can have 2 handrails, And what it was intended for is one on the left and one on the right. But you can take one of those and just pull the offset off of it and move it vertically, and it's basically in the center. But it's so I forget which one of these. This one, I guess, right? My handrail 1 says 0 for the lateral offset. That's my bottom rail. So it's laterally, even though it's technically in the left position, it's 0 offset. So it's sitting right at the middle of the railing. And then the right railing, the one that's actually set to the right position, has the 2 1/4 inch handrail offset. And that's the one that's placed, you can see here the height, at 2'10", right? Now, the height of the bottom rail, I just got it as close as I could to what the code called for. It's so 9, 11, and 30 seconds is just like a lot of trial and error to get it, because, like the way the code measures it and the way that Revit measures it aren't quite the same. So I got it as close as I could to get it in that spot. And again, when you're placing your dimensions in your detail, you're going to verify those things and make sure they actually match the code. And if they don't, then that's when it might be time to either edit your type or fudge your dimensions in that case, right? Anyway, that's what I'm using here. So otherwise, the rails themselves are super simple. Now, I don't remember which one of these has the supports. I think it's the bottom rail. So, yes. So there's the pickets right there. And all that is a family that is just a circle extruded, right? I don't remember if I did it as a sweep or extrusion. I tend to use sweeps so that I can edit the profile, but it might be either or. And then, of course, the spacing is 4 inches to match code. But the nice thing about doing it with a support is the pickets continue through the extensions, right? Now here I'm only extending 3 inches, and that was just because I was going to continue this part manually and draw that extra piece manually. Right. But if it's this one, like this handrail here, right? That one actually extends, where is it here? That one actually extends, the full amount plus a tread, so the more kind of traditional thing that you would do, right? Yeah. But here I'm kind of doing it manually. And I forget how I arrived at 3. It was, again, some trial and error, because if you didn't extend it at least a little bit, then it doesn't flatten out. Okay. And I think because 2.5 was my minimum, 3 inches got me past the minimum and it flattened out properly. Okay. Right. Otherwise, it just sort of kept going at the same angle. And I wanted it to go at an angle and then flatten out. And the only way I could do that is to let it extend some. So that's where the 3 inches comes from.
No, that's awesome. So your balusters are actually, for the stairs, are all supports, right?
All of them except for these posts. The post there
are the balusters in between. And so, and in order to make that happen, you have to do that handrail trick you're talking about, right? And that's sort of part of the reason why you're explaining the handrail 1, handrail 2, because otherwise the supports wouldn't work the way that you're thinking, which is kind of neat. That's really cool. And that's just so that the baluster with the extensions is controlled better, right? And that's, I think, a lot of people struggle with that, right? Is when you pull, because
the code calls for that. The code says you have to continue those vertical members along the extension.
Right. And when you use just the out of the box, baluster and rail tool, when you pull those extensions, that's where you see.
Yeah, just the railing extends and it stops the baluster.
And then you're always trying to figure out how to meet that gap, and sometimes you're trying to split the railing, you're doing all kinds of stuff, right, to try and get that to work. So that's cool. Right. That's really neat. I wanted to reiterate that just so everyone followed why you ran through that, because that's so the support tool, which I believe was designed for the wall supports.
It was designed for these things.
Yes. And so you're, and again, I'm just saying that to help everyone understand what's going on there, and it's actually it's awesome. So you're taking advantage of that tool and not dealing with the damn baluster spacing.
Actually, I think these ended up being the out of the box ones, not mine. So mine are slightly different. Let me see. Maybe I didn't load them in. Mine were slightly different because I like the smooth, right? So when you're in a railing, there's a setting for that. It's buried somewhere. Let's see if I can remember where it is. It's probably in, here, right? The default join can either be a miter or fillet.
Right.
Fillet, and then you can put a radius. And it just makes smoother geometry. Again, I like fewer seams. I like smoother geometry. So you see how it's doing nice smooth and going around the corners here. And that's part of the reason why I needed the 3-inch extension down there, right? To get past that fillet. And then this one, the same thing with the wall return. It would do a nice fillet there if you use that. So this is theirs, I think, because those aren't supports. That's actually a baluster, I believe. So that's like the old school one. That's snuck in there somehow. No, maybe not. Oh, hold on.
Maybe you just couldn't select it for some reason.
Yeah, maybe it's just not letting me select. Oh, yeah, no, it is a support. Yep. Okay, so there it is. So yeah, that's traditionally how you would use the supports.
Right.
Is, to either attach to the posts, because there is actually a setting in there which is kind of nice. Like if you want that same kind of little escutcheon plate and angled support to attach back to the posts on your railing, then one of the choices here is to do that. So the fixed distance is one of the options, but you can say align with posts, right? Yep. So if you align with posts, it'll just put one at every post, which is kind of nice on a stair. But then it doesn't know what to do along the extensions, right? And then these things, you always end up with these in kind of weird, bad places. And sometimes you can select them and unpin them, but sometimes the push pin is mysteriously not there. I think it's because this is in a stair tower.
Yeah.
Right? And when it's in a stair tower, it just doesn't behave as. So down here, right, I should be able to unpin. See? So I could unpin that, and I could actually move that support, which is, it's not great, but it's better than leaving it in a really bad spot, right? So if I want one of these here, what's not great about it is having to do that over and over again in lots of places. But the fact that you can do that, you can even go to the component tool and you can add a support, a custom one, which is another really nice feature of sports. You can't add a baluster manually. Right. But you can add a support manually. But again, stair towers seem to break all of that, which is kind of, so again, we're talking about the good and the bad here. So there are some legit complaints of stuff that just does not work in stairs and railings, and that's definitely one of them. So some of those things, like I said, you just got to temper your expectations and, and work with what does work and just kind of try and live with what doesn't,
So now you've got that's great, and I think even just that railing setup I think will be a huge eye opener for people. So maybe show everyone what that looks like before you fix some of the end rails and stuff. Maybe just
draw a separate
draw a quick just draw a quick stair maybe, just so I'm sure everyone's dying to see that. But I'm curious because now with this sort of extension or this handrail 1 and 2 approach with the supports, I'm curious to see how it pans out too, because it makes total sense in my mind, which is awesome.
I need to
figure out where you're gonna draw it.
Yeah, I gotta find a plan here. All right, so let me just make a new...
And Michael in the chat said, to get posts where you want them, you can split the line, add a reference line, align lock the ends of the path to the reference lines, and dimension to the reference lines. Yes, right. That's exactly what I'm saying. We don't want to do, and this is what it's helping you. But without supports, that's what you do, right? In order to try and get that baluster to end at the end there, right?
But his comment is great, because you and I are saying, we don't want to do that if we can avoid it,
right?
But sometimes you can't. Yes, sometimes you can't. Sometimes the project calls for it. You need that level of precision in there for XYZ reason, right? And again, when you're balancing, like I wish I had a pair of scales here so I could just use it as a prop. But when you're weighing the pros and cons, if I do it this way versus if I do it this way, you should always be asking yourself, am I going to get more benefit out of this than the amount of effort I'm going to put into it? Right. And if not, then you should step back and say, well, maybe I shouldn't do it that way. Right. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that anybody's doing it wrong if they do a more detail.
Yeah, I think what we're saying is this is how far we believe you can take it before you start. Before it becomes sketching really and splitting and
then making custom families or adaptive components or really going. I mean,
but it also becomes a starting point for those things, right? If because you're still going to need to start somewhere and get you closer. So either way.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I just click the stair
Yep.
tool. I'll choose my type here, right? Check your settings. So it's trying to go up to my mezzanine level. That doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to go up to level 2, right? So I'm on a level 1. Now, remember, I have a sloping first floor. So I actually have 3 level 1s. So the level 1 that I've just made a floor plan of is the highest of my 3. So this stair is going to be a little shorter than the other ones. So I'm only getting 15 risers here. Okay. I just wanted to point that out. But I'm not really going to change anything there. Run with 3'8". That's fine. That's typical. I'll just draw it from the center because I'm off to the side in empty space here, right? I'll do about half of it. Let's see, 7, and then we'll do the other half, right? Now, if you just do this, of course, I'd have to have thin lines to see because that's only a 1/4 inch thick, right? So if I just did this, I'm going to get the really nasty kind of, tight railings. Anybody who knows me and saw me just cancel now. I'm doing a demo. I'm not doing a real project. No, because I always give people a hard time about that.
Yeah, of course.
Click cancel, right? So I know somebody's there saying, "Hey, he just canceled."
Right.
Yes, I did because I don't want to save this on purpose. I'm gonna overtake my 3D view here with this guy, and we can just kind of see what this looks like. All right. So I have it default to this crappy railing, right? Because I find the one downside of using supports is sometimes when you switch railings, the supports misbehave. So I always like to have this railing that's nothing but a rectangular handrail in the file because it's almost like a reset. In fact, that's probably what I should call it. I call it railing
Reset
1.
railing.
But I should just call it reset because I don't know why that works. But like if you try and switch from, say, a glass panel railing to one that's using the pickets, the pickets will almost always misbehave. But if you go to this one first and then to the pickets, it seems to work fine. I don't know why. I really couldn't tell you, but it's just one of those weird little things. So I've got actually different versions of so the one that I was showing you in the other one, I think was using extension. I called it none, but really it's just that little 3-inch extension. Right. I'm going to do the top and bottom one just to show you what it looks like if you just had a 1-story stair here, right? That warning was telling me I had duplicate elements because sometimes it'll put an extra picket somewhere right on top of another one. So I just ignored that because that's really not, ideally for a clean model, you'd want to get rid of those duplicates, but and you can actually tab in and find them and delete them. But I just ignored it for now. But they're usually right here. Like there's one right there, kind of buried in there, and there's another one right there. There's one right there that's a problem, right? So if I tab into that, unpin it, you can just delete it.
Which you can't do with balusters.
Can't do that with balusters, yeah.
So that's a bonus to supports there for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of bonuses to supports, right? But you can see that mine is using the rounded. I just like the rounded better. But do you see how kind of crappy it looks right here, right? So usually for me, I mean, unless you're modeling an existing stair and this is what it is, I mean, if it is what it is, right?
Right.
For these really tight, crazy angles, you're going to have very little control over that with the default railing tool. So that's a place where it's doing, its level best here to try and give me what it thinks I want. Okay. But it's just, it does look a little crappy, and I do have a disconnected sheared connection there. That's just because I don't physically have enough room to get around the corner, right? And honestly, if you go look at a railing like this in a real building, it probably has some really crazy angles and some other things that they did just to fit it into that space. So it's probably got similar problems. It's just not quite so janky looking as that, right? So if that's what you've got to model, that's what you've got to model. But in my case, I've got room, so I'm going to just make a quick adjustment to the stair. And the easiest way to fix that is to edit your stair, and don't mess with the landing. If you mess with the runs, it will automatically adjust the landing, right? So I'm just going to take this run and I'm going to move it with my move tool 1 foot. And then this one, the one that's going down, I'm going to go a little further. I'm going to move that 1'6". Okay. So that kind of gives us a little more room to kind of get down to the flat area before we turn the corner. Now, if you want these lined up, then just go ahead and line them up, right? So they can both be 1'6". That's fine, right? And, of course, the other thing, folks want to know is you can put dimensions and all this stuff. Just make sure you're dimensioning. You always want the runs. The runs drive the stair. So the supports and the landings are a consequence of the shape of the stair or of the shape of the runs. So just make sure when you're dimensioning, it says runs in the tooltip. If it doesn't, use your tab key. Okay. And then, if I want this to be, let's say I wanted that to be 1 foot, right? You can just do that dimensionally, right? So all of that you can do. And when I finish this, and let's see, I don't recall which view. Oops. That was not what I wanted. I wanted Control Tab. There we go. Okay. My views are going underneath Zoom, and I can't see them anymore, so I just decided to do Control Tab there. But do you see how much nicer that looks now? Because we've given it plenty of room to turn the corner and to make the proper transitions, right? So if you've got the space to work with, I think what you're going to get from the, automatic stair and railing is going to be quite acceptable, likewise with the supports, right? You see this piece of support before, when it was jammed right up against it, you couldn't even get a support. You get a little broken triangle in there that really looked kind of bad. So you can go a long way towards getting acceptable results by just, kind of making some of those really simple adjustments there, right? Now, that's one of the reasons I don't like to go to sketch too early. Like for the example I was talking about where they wanted the 2-inch return at the top here, right? The only way that you're going to get that is to, edit the stair. And so that's this one, right? I would have to take this and let me get zoom out of the way. It's covering everything. I would have to convert it, right? Now, when you convert it, it says, this is it. You're going to lose your automatic behavior. Okay. But now, I could select this and I could edit the sketch of it. And then you could put in, a line here at 2 inches away. Well, don't want that to be a boundary line. Riser, right? You could put in a line here at 2 inches away. Now, I technically just added a riser, so I don't know if this is going to get all, if it's going to get all cranky with me or not.
Probably, but that's okay.
Yeah, let's see. Okay. Oh, actually, 14 plus 1. Okay, good. It didn't get really mad at me, which is nice. But and then you turn off the end with riser.
Right. So actually, since you brought that up, that's somebody did ask a question a while ago of when to use end with riser and when not to. I think
it just depends on the connection that you want to the level above, right? Exactly. So here, right? Do you see how I've got this little short tread now, and then you would bring your floor slab in flush with that, right? So the floor slab would continue right from this point,
right?
But unfortunately, this run is now a sketch-based run, and there's no way to unsketch it, right? Like you'd have to start over again. So if you decide to go that route, it can be effective, but there's no turning back, right? So just keep that in mind.
Somebody actually asked if you could show what that support family looks like. I know you said it was pretty straightforward, but maybe just opening it up or
it's not a family. It's just the default support. It's just literally this is it. It's just a 1/4 inch. So you just do edit type duplicate on your.
The vertical support. The baluster support thing.
The railing.
Okay, sorry, the railing support. I apologize.
The railing support. Sorry,
it was off topic, but not But I figured we'll hit it.
I haven't actually looked at this one myself in a while, so we'll rediscover it together. So let's see what we got in the floor plan. So this is the out of the box template. It has a reference plane over here for the hand clearance.
Yeah.
It looks like I ignored that one and I just drew it here. Did I do an extrusion? I just did a simple extrusion. I did make it too tall and I put some voids in there. If I recall, probably front view. Or I've got, maybe it's left view. There we go. Yeah, here's all the dimensions. Okay, so they had put their dimensions in left view, so I just stuck with that. So I have two different parameters here, right? So this height here is currently set to 0, but if I made that like I don't know, 1 foot or something, I just made it so that I could project it down or up, because sometimes when you load it in, you just need a little more or a little bit less or something like that. So and then I also did a vertical offset. So vertical offset is moving the bottom, but then I don't know why I left it called height. That's a dumb name. But height is actually the opposite of height, right? Because it's going down. But that's projecting down from that location. And I built this literally years ago, so I can't remember exactly why I thought it was necessary to have all three parameters, but it did feel like it was, and so
I would imagine it's probably kind of like the Baluster family, where you want control off that reference, whatever, because that reference isn't necessarily like a floor anymore, right? It becomes different things, and so maybe giving yourself the ability to pull it up or down depending on what that bottom rail, handrail number 2, ends up being. But,
I know this one for sure was just simply because it was easier to have the parameter, because when the slope of the stair changes, sometimes it affected that. So then you could just do it with the parameter without editing the family. The bottom one is the one I can't quite remember why I needed it, but it's probably the same thing. There was probably a little gap that showed up, and I was like, I'll just put a parameter there and it'll fix it.
Yep. And so that's a template. That's a stair support template out of the box, right?
Yeah, the template that I started with is called support, right? Is it called railing support? The hell's it called?
Railing support, right there.
Railing support, yeah. It's this one.
Railing support, right? Perfect.
Yep.
So when you start that, you probably have some of those. Yeah, you have the reference planes there, and you probably even have some of the dimensions there, I bet, or at least reference planes.
Right.
Yep,
so, that's
why they called it height.
They called
it height. There you go.
All right. Okay. See, I'm absolved. All right. So I kept their parameters and I added a couple of my own.
Got it.
I added the offset and I added the height. Well, again, now it makes sense because they're using the ref level as the location. And if you're thinking of that as a little angled support with an escutcheon plate to the wall, then height is where that touches the bottom of the railing. And then the reason their height goes down is because that thing angles down and then back to the wall, right? I didn't want mine to go down. I wanted mine to go up. So that's why I needed a reference plane up in this location and a different parameter for that. I suppose I could have reused height and made it go the other way.
That's it.
But yeah. Anyway,
cool.
So yeah. Again, I haven't been in this family in a while, so thanks for bringing me down memory lane there.
Yeah, no, that was great. That was helpful, I think, for people, because I think that's a great tip.
All right, let me close that one, and that one, and then so we've got that, and then if you want this to be a stair tower, I would need a section through here, and I don't need it to be that deep. So you would just select this, and you'd say select levels, and don't want the mezzanine. Let's just do levels 3, 4, and 5. Finish, and it'll just adjust. Yeah, it'll try. Like that one is a little strange. I'm not sure what happened there. Probably because my sketch-based top.
Yeah, your sketch-based top, and you're using that shorter.
That's exactly why.
Yeah.
No, it's the sketch-based top is what messed it up.
The 2-inch thing, yeah.
Yeah, because you see how it's not able to adjust the those runs. So I'm going to undo that, and I'll show you. I'll cancel, and I'll show you what would have happened if I had waited to do that. Right, like so this one, edit stairs. I think I can delete this and just add it again.
Just that sketch, because you only converted that run to a sketch.
Exactly. Yeah. I think that will work. Let's find out. Okay, that seems to have worked. Let's look at it in 3D just to make sure. Seems okay. Now let's try doing a stair tower. So again, that's a clever workaround, but I don't love it for those reasons, right? See, that worked much better, right? And you can see here that the height between level 2 and 3 is different than the heights between 3 and so the 3 to 4 and 4 to 5 are the same. So this one, you ended up with I don't know what they call these, but they're like a stair group or something, right? Those
stair
two
component of some sort. Yeah.
Yeah. This one is different, and this one down here is different because those floor to floor heights are different. I mean, it's the same basic configuration. They're kind of trying to do half and half for you and give you the same rough setup, but so it does its best to kind of match what you're doing, but yeah, it's going to be a little different. And then so what that means is if you edit anything about one of these two, it'll apply to both of them, but it won't apply to this guy down here, right? So for folks that have never seen that, let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to do edit stairs, and I'm just going to take the landing here, and let me just hold my shift key and my nudge and do that, okay? And then it went out of my cut region there, but we'll fix that in a minute. And that is just because my section wasn't big enough. So do you see how that change only applied to the top two, right? Because those two were the same height group, I'm going to call them. Yeah. But these were different height groups, so they don't. Now, again, that's not so much is that correct? Is that not correct? It's just know that that's what it does. And then if it does, you can plan for that. My experience with stair towers is once it's in a stair tower, it's a little difficult to kind of back out of that. So if you're not 100% sure that you're ready for it to be a stair tower, wait, you know, work on the lower floors for a while, get the stair kind of where you want it to be, and then turn it into a stair tower later. Now, if the stair tower is not working for you, you can always just do a plain old copy and paste, but then you're going to have to adjust each height group yourself manually. The nice thing about the stair tower is it adjusts to the heights automatically, which is kind of a nice feature. So
yeah, and I guess thinking about it that way, even, you know, the benefits are probably what you showed there more than anything, because in theory, you could also, as long as the top and bottom of the stair are set to a level, then in theory, if you move the level, regardless of whether it's a stair tower or not, right? They're gonna adjust. But I think the key aspect of what you're showing in this tool is I think you mentioned at some point in time to like it's all driven by the run, right? Respect the run, and so I think when it comes to those components, I think hopefully people can see there's so much value in keeping them the stair component before, you know, as opposed to converting to sketch, because of what you're showing there, which is they become so much more flexible, like when you adjust the size, when you adjust the length and stuff. And the second you do a sketch, yes, and the second you go to sketch, you're losing that flexibility. You're going back to 2008.
Yeah, and you know, with the earlier iterations of this stair tower, there were three stair towers in this building, and they're all similar, but because of the floor to floor height on level 1, they're different enough, right? But I was trying to work on the upper floors that were all the same first, and then copy that stair tower to the other locations. You know, I tried a few different things. But ultimately, I ended up these lower levels. I ended up just drawing them over again as I got more into design development. Just drawing them clean, in situ where they needed to be, and I found that worked best. And the upper floors were behaving and benefiting from the stair tower. So sometimes you're going to do a little bit of both. You know, again, don't kill yourself to try and make it. You know, oh well, this tool's got to work for this, and if it doesn't, then everything sucks. And you know. I mean, okay, if it's working on levels 4 through 50, and it's not working on levels 1 through 4, then do 1 through 4 manually and benefit on 4 through 50. Why not? You know, so
great. Yeah. So I think what I want to do is I think we should try and get to the example of the sketch custom stair, because I think just in general talking about that, but I think I did want to just run through a few of the just major tips before we jump into, because I think what we're saying here is do as much as you can before you convert to sketch, right? And the benefits are what we're showing there, right? You have that the flexibility, the respecting the run. I mean, even just showing.
I like that. I'm going to start saying that now.
respecting the run. But even the where you showed when you're in the component and you grab the run and move them instead of the landing. So many people grab the landing and pull the blue grip, right? And that just by you showing that, hopefully people saw that the landing actually adjusted to find the runs, and that's key there, right?
Right.
And then obviously the railing tip with the supports is awesome. That's going to be a big one, I think, for people. So I wanted to just reiterate that because I think that's awesome. And then now we're saying, okay, now here's an example where
This one
you're not going to be able to use the component tool, right?
Yeah.
So you got to use a sketch. So we can sort of talk a little bit about this one as the.
Now I
as
know
the
we're
end here.
running short on time here, so for those that have access to my LinkedIn Learning videos, this and if we really get time, the other example are both featured in my tip series. So I have a weekly series where I cover just any topic that and anything and everything, and so the backstory on this is I walked into the store one day and I went, that's, and like any good Revit geek, I went, how would I build that in Revit? So I pulled out my phone and I took some pictures. And then when I got back to, either my hotel or home or wherever, I said, oh, let me try and build this stair. What's cool about this is two things. I mean, of course you've got the flared bottom and then it goes in two directions when it gets to the landing. So both of those things are possible. But this is definitely one of those places where you're going to have to convert to sketch based in order to achieve it. So the reason I brought up the LinkedIn learning video is because I'll hit the highlights here, but there's like a 18 minute video in my tip series, which I literally walked through the whole thing. So if we don't get time to go through all the gory details, then maybe I can send you a link later, Jeff, and you can put it in the chat or something.
Definitely.
But okay, so let me show you this guy. I've got a axonometric here, right? So here it is without railings, just to kind of keep the stair clean. But there's the sketch-based version over there, right? So if I just kind of move off to the side and build it again, right? So kind of come over here and do a stair. Here's the trick here. This time we're going to turn off automatic landing, okay? Because with automatic landing, it's going to try and create the landing the minute you make the second run. And that may or may not be beneficial to you in this case. So I'm going to do about half the risers again. Let's see, that's pretty good there. And then I'm going to give myself enough room to kind of, do you see how there's like a little hook in the landing here? So I'm just kind of giving enough room there. And because of the scale of this view, the numbers are really small, but now they're even smaller. There we go, right? So you can see there's 1 through 15, 16 through 30 over here. Well, here's a really cool thing that you can do, right? You can just mirror this guy, copy it, mirror it, right? Oops. 2023. It remembers what you did last time you did this, right? So I had copy turned off from my mirror tool. Okay. But do you see how that's 16 through 31 and that's 16 through 31? So that's going to give you, like if I switch to the axon here, right? This is it without a landing. Okay. Now, unfortunately, you can't select three things with the landing. Be cool if you could. But if you go to the landing tool, it's going to prompt you to select the first run and then the second run. So the first run would be this guy, and then I could pick this guy, and I'll get that kind of a run, or landing rather. If I undo, I can also do this, which is kind of interesting, right? So which one makes more sense? Well, I kind of like this because I want to show you this cool little feature. If I take this stair here and I kind of move it in, got to go a little further, it looks like. There we go. Right? You see how it was actually smart enough to cut that right in? And okay, unfortunately, what I'd really like it to be able to do right now is if I move the run, I'd like the landing to stretch, and it's saying, sorry, no, right? Now, you could do this and get super close to what we're after, right? But, and that kind of joined in there. But unfortunately, this corner here, right, like there's not going to be, the minute you do that third one in there, I don't know why, but it puts a grip control here and here, but it doesn't put them in any of the other spots where we would like them to be, right? So that means that I don't have a choice now. I've got to convert this to a sketch-based, okay? And that's just because this design calls for, as you saw from the photographs, this one calls for, this shape like this, right? So if I kind of do this and then just trim it up, I'll just do the one side here. Oh, so I guess those are separate anyway, right? That will give me what I want. But the only way I could figure to get that was to make that a sketch, which kind of stinks, but that's the way it is. Well, obviously it's the same situation with this, right? To get that flared bottom, you've got to convert it. Okay. Then you edit the sketch. And now what I do is I just sort of pull these lines back a little ways. And then I'll go to a tangent arc, which is a really nice tool to kind of give you that. And I'm eyeballing this, but I'll show you the sketch of the other one where actually, let me just get the one correct here. And then I'll show you the sketch. I'm going to move that there so it starts clean. But the tangent arc wouldn't work. It would try and tangent off of the riser if you snap it first. Snapped it second. Okay. Then I'll take this and I'll mirror it. And did I get it? No. This is too long. There we go. I think that works now, right? Yep. Okay. And then before I delete these, I'm going to use them as a guide, right, for where the risers need to be, right? I'll just kind of eyeball this for this example. We don't have to make it perfect. Okay, that one. Make sure keep concentric is off. Oh, anyway, that looks a little ugly, but
gets the concept. It's all good.
Gets the concept, exactly. But you can take the boy out of the architecture, but you can't take the architecture out of the boy. I obviously have a gap somewhere. So let me pitch that one and show you the sketch on the other one, which we know worked here. So I'll cancel that stair, and then we'll come over here and we'll select this one, which I spent a little bit more time on just to get it a little nicer. But here you can see I even added some reference planes to help me out, and you can use dimensions and, whatever you want to do. But then these lines, I was a little more careful. I even set them to real radii instead of just eyeballing them, so you can do all of that stuff. But then as long as you've got, you have to have exactly 2 continuous boundaries in green, and then obviously the right number of risers. The error I was getting, I must have had an overlap or a gap somewhere, and that's what it was causing. But anyway, that's a custom-shaped stair now. And then I did create a really rough railing in this file. So, am I still in Sketch here? Cancel out of there.
So while you're looking for that, the one thing I did want to point out is you'll notice, even in the other example, you didn't convert the entire stair to sketch. You only converted what you needed to. And almost every time I see someone convert to sketch, they're converting the entire stair to a sketch, like almost every time.
Yeah, it's not necessary.
So that's a great tip to take away there. Is you only, like a landing is a perfect example where you may have, in order to make it work, you may have to have funky landings, but you don't have to convert the risers to the runs to a sketch, which is pretty cool.
Right. So I'm just using the railing tool here, and I'll just do place on stair and ramp. And I don't know what that error said because I don't care. But I got almost all the way there.
That's pretty close. It looks good.
Yeah, I just didn't. I was too lazy to do the fleur-de-lis at the top here, right? But that would just be a simple little family that you would just put on the top of your balusters.
And is that a baluster? Or is that a support family?
I think these are balusters because you see they're not continuing past the extension, but they could be supports. If I wanted them to continue past the extension, or if you just like supports better, I mean, there's no reason not to do them as supports. But I think these are just balusters.
Yeah.
I think the reason I did balusters, the one advantage,
that offset thing that's going on,
the pattern. You can't do. You see how it goes: a tall one, a short one, a tall one, a short one. You can't do that with supports. So with the support, you would have to do. I don't even know if you could, because you would have to try and build the pattern into the support, and then it wouldn't follow the slope. It would be awful. Yeah. So these have got to be balusters.
Yeah.
So But that's a really nice feature of balusters. It would just be nice if, I mean, look, the baluster technology hasn't changed in 20 years. No. It would just be nice if it got a little bit of love, you know?
Yeah. So you wouldn't have to make that what you just showed there in the baluster settings with the the 17 balusters at 4 inches. Oh, that dialogue.
The dialogue's crazy, but I mean, hey, it works. And look at this; it followed the custom landing.
Yeah, no, it did pretty good. Yeah, I mean, some adjustment on the posts and the sketch, and you're close. I mean, that's really close.
Yeah, I mean, if you got to go sketch based, you got to go. Now, I know in the chat when we first started, somebody was asking about quantities, and Jeff and I, before we turned on the call, we said, I'm not sure, and so I threw out a quick material takeoff in here, and I have no idea if this number is even remotely close, but this. This is the volume and the area of the mahogany material that I've got applied to this stair. And obviously it's including both the landings and the stairs. So could we get it down to the individual components? You know, this is how much you have on the treads. This is how much you have on the risers. I'm not sure. If they were different materials, you could. If they're the same material, you'd probably have to put some other distinguishing mark in there that the material takeoff could tap into. But as long as there's a parameter that you can separate your schedule on, right now I applied the same mahogany to the supports, the treads, the risers, the landing. So I'm just getting one line item, right? But if I had supports as one material and treads as another and risers as another and landings as another, I'd be getting differentiation there. And it might be really close to what you're looking for. So I didn't dive into the person's question. I don't know what they were trying to achieve, but a material takeoff is the first thing I would suggest exploring on that. So
awesome. So one last one. I'm just curious if you've and it could easily just be you haven't gone down this road exploring it, but glass railings.
Well, it's funny you should ask that.
I don't know if you have an example, and I know you might have teed it up, but there was a question, and I'm curious, and you know, if not, we can follow up on Twitter or something with some thoughts. But I know that's always a question, and I've seen some extremely unique approaches to it, and I'm personally curious how you've attached it. So maybe we'll just follow up on Twitter or something with some examples.
I'm gonna fumble around if I try and find the file.
Yeah, it's all good.
That same client, we had that very discussion. And what we decided to do was again forego the posts. We decided if we forego the post, we solved most of the problems that people hate about glass railings. And the only thing that we didn't get was the regular posts, which are never really regular anyway, right? Because you always have some strange little condition at the corner or something else, right?
Yeah.
So that means that what we did was we used a railing with a long, thin profile. And when you use a railing with a long profile, you'd be surprised how close it gets. Because it follows the slope, it turns the corner, it goes flat when it needs to, then it follows the slope again. It's this one continuous piece of geometry that you just assign to glass, but you're not getting the expression of the individual panels of glass. Now, you could also add balusters to break that up a little bit and get closer. We chose not to in the example that we built, but you certainly could. But again, I try to find that middle ground. What's going to get me my eighth, quarter, and half-inch plan sections and details, really close, and then I only have to supplement a little bit. And then for the large-scale details, I'm fine with doing more work there because I'm only going to show a few of those. I'm not going to show every single condition in a large-scale detail. You're going to show a typical transition at a landing and a typical railing condition and a typical nosing condition and things like that, right? So you're going to create those conditions. You're going to choose the best ones to showcase that. And if you have to do more drafting in those views, so be it. But for the model itself, for the overall, I think you can get really close by just doing a handrail that is a long, thin rectangle. Looks like a piece of glass,
and that's exactly how I've approached it too. I was curious to see if you had any other thoughts, but I think that in my experience, that's been the best too. But the same rules apply as apply with the railing, where the geometry. I mean, Revit's going to try, but there are if you're going to try and make a turn like that first stair example you showed, and you're going to try and have this profile do it, well, that profile probably can't do that in the real world, which is why
Well,
it's
and
blowing up.
balusters are just going to give up at those corners.
Yes,
See, that's why you get all those empty gaps, right? Yeah, baluster is not going to bend. Now, I've seen people do adaptive components and do all kinds of crazy stuff. Again, if you've got to have it look the way it's got to look, and you're going to do a, I've got a little animation here walking up the stairs. This is just a straight Revit walkthrough. But that's the out of the box glass railing. So it's got the gaps and the whole, that's not the one I just described, right? But if you're going to do this in Enscape and you need to see the individual glass panels and you really want to see exactly the way it's going to look, then you're just going to have to build that stair. In fact, this stair back here, I don't know if you can see it right about here, this part right here, because it's a middle support, middle supports won't go under the landing, I found. So this part right here is an in-place family. So sometimes, if you just can't, that's a perfect place for an in-place family because it's got to match the stair. It's a one-off condition. That's exactly what in-place families were designed for. And I just made it look like the support. Okay. The only other alternative is to build the whole stinking stair in the family editor, which you can do, but it's just way more work. Yeah. So I'm not sure that it would have been worth it. Right. So again, I'm always looking for that compromise. Right. How can I leverage the tool as far as I can take it? And then I'll go the last mile, as it were, using other techniques, going a little bit manual. Right. Awesome. And I know we are out of time for sure, but there's one last little tiny tip I want to give people.
No problem. Go ahead, man.
I felt pretty clever about this one. This is actually an adaptive component. Now, there's only one reason, though. Okay? So this is that same client. This is our Escalator family. And here's why. Do you see what the treads are doing? You see how they kind of sink into the floor as they go down? Okay. I couldn't think of any other way to do this. This is a repeated path. So if, I don't know how many levels deep I'd have to edit into this family. It's at least one or two. But somewhere in here, let's see if it's in here. It might be right at the top level. Oh, yeah, look, there's repeater. So reference lines, reference points, and repeater. Let's isolate those. Okay. I probably didn't want the repeaters. Let's hide that. Ah, crap. Okay, so the path isn't there, but so that's probably one level deeper or something. I don't know. But the path is it starts flat, it curves. You can kind of see it there.
Yep.
Okay, it curves and then it goes straight and then it curves again. A divided path can go across multiple segments. We don't have a polyline in Revit, right? So if you try to follow a path like that, a divided path is the only thing that I know of in Revit that'll do that, where it'll even though you've got 5 separate segments there, it'll let you space your points along those 5 separate segments correctly, and then you just repeat your treads along there, and they just naturally do. So the rest of the geometry is just standard family stuff. Like, I didn't need an adaptive component for any other reason, but I went adaptive component because I needed the repeater for the steps themselves. So anyway, sometimes you do go there. So again, I don't want to leave people with the idea that, don't ever do any of these other ideas. I just like to exhaust the other possibilities first before I get there.
No, but I do think there's a lot of validity and value to the idea of getting as much as you can out of that component based stair. I mean honestly, until you just showed me even some of this, I never thought of, when I remember when it was the components came in, whatever year that was, 13, 14, I don't even know when that was, but when we went away from just the sketch and we had the component piece, I until now I just haven't thought about how much value there was in trying to keep that a component. I think we're just so, especially those of us who used stairs before the component exists, I think our minds were always trained for the green and black lines, and that's where we're comfortable. But the flexibility and you're getting the best of the parametric value of Revit when the rails, the stair, everything is stays those components with each other
because they know how to interact with each other. Exactly. But sometimes they don't,
and sometimes they don't, right? And that's why I'm saying these workarounds, that's usually the biggest downfall of the workarounds, is that you lose that adaptability, that interaction. Like, there were a couple comments in the chat about using curtain walls, using different things, and they work, right? All of that works.
They work,
but you do lose some of those benefits that we're talking about.
Then you've got a stair that's a curtain wall, and it's going to be misbehave in those ways.
Right.
By the way, we last 2 releases we got new categories. So this was predates that. It was specialty equipment, but now it could be categorized as vertical circulation. So even better, right?
Awesome, man.
All right, that's it. I'm sure we could go on, but I mean, what are we, an hour and a half here?
It's all good. Everyone, most people stuck around, so they must have been enjoying it. I appreciate this, Paul. I'm happy that you decided to come on and were brave enough to tackle stairs. We didn't get heckled too bad in the chat, which is great. So
you got to see it. I didn't see it.
Yeah, so, you can go back and look at it afterwards if you really wanted to.
You shielded me from that. So,
this has been great, man. I really appreciate it. I'll make sure to put links to everything you mentioned. So if you want to shoot me a link to that Stair video you have on LinkedIn.
I will. Unfortunately, it's behind the paywall, but maybe I can unlock it for a week or so. And
however it works, a link and some however it works, let me know. I appreciate it. For those of you who want to reach out to Paul, paulaubin.com is probably your best bet, as well as at Paul F. Aubin on Twitter. And any final words before we wrap up, Paul?
No, that's perfect. You did my plug-in for me and everything. So,
you've been on enough. I mean, we didn't even need an intro for you, right? You're Paul Aubin. We got it. It's all.
Hey, sure. I'll make one plug. If you got nothing to do over the holiday break, check out some LinkedIn Learning.
There you go. Well, thanks, Paul. I really appreciate you coming on. Right. It's been awesome. And for everyone else, thanks for hanging out. Thanks for a whole nother season of BIM After Dark Live, episode 90. So that means next season, we will probably be hitting episode 100. Yes. And so
congratulations to you, man. It's great.
You always seem to pick the last episodes of the season. So we'll see. Maybe you'll be episode 100. We'll see.
Ooh.
I always give options, and Paul, you always seem to hit the last. I'll pick the last one of the season. It's all good.
It gives me more time to prepare.
Yeah.
So, But, thanks for that. Well, thanks for having me on as always. It's always a pleasure. And hopefully we shared some stuff that people found useful. So
I think so. I think there's no doubt in that. And for those of you that joined us live, thank you for hanging out live. I really appreciate it. Have a great weekend. Have a great new year. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. And again, if you're interested, check out LinkedIn Learning for Paul, and check out community.bimafterdark.com for me. And maybe Paul might be on there every once in a while too. You never know. So I really appreciate you guys. And with that, I think we're going to bid you adieu. Check out the channel over the break. Obviously, I won't be live, but I've got a lot of planned content. So definitely keep an eye out on YouTube. I've also got a bunch of stuff going on TikTok. I've been trying this short video thing, so you guys can search the Revit Kid on TikTok. I have no idea what I'm doing over there, but it's fun. So
I'm not even brave enough to try. So.
Yeah. So with that, everyone, thank you so much, and I'll see you guys soon.